This is the Living in Havering podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Living in Havering podcast. I'm Ben Vaughan. This is our monthly deep dive into life in Havering, where we meet the residents, businesses and partners making our borough a great place to live. Coming up, we'll be talking history and heritage as we welcome guests from the Havering Museum and East Side Community Heritage. And we'll be meeting the new leader of Havering Council, Cllr Keith Prince, for his first monthly question time. But first up, this month, we're focusing in on safety. Later, we'll talk to the man in charge of Havering's CCTV network. But first, Living's Laura Birkin has been out on the beat with the local police to learn more about the work taking place to keep us all safe.
This is the Living in Havering podcast. I'm out on patrol with Havering Police today to get a behind-the-scenes look at how our local officers help keep Havering safe, from responding to incidents as they happen to providing a calm and reassuring presence for residents.
So my name's Sergeant Aaron Harris. I'm one of the Romford Town Centre Team Sergeants. Been a police officer for 14 years.
And what's a typical day on patrol?
So a typical day will involve us conducting a variety of different patrols. So that'll be officers out in vehicles, officers conducting foot patrols, and also if the weather's reasonable, we'll have officers out on our push bikes that Romford Bid kindly supplied us. We have officers generally out in uniform and plain clothes, so just because residents don't see a police officer when they come to the town centre doesn't mean that we're not there. A typical day would probably start with us briefing at Romford's. We'd always check our police systems to see who's wanted, so I'm sure your residents will appreciate we come across a lot of the same faces in the town. So we'll see if any of those are regulars, so to speak, are wanted, so we know that if we see them, that they're arrestable. And then once we've done that, we'll come out on patrol and see what happens. We'll respond to calls as they come out on the radio from members of the public or staff. And if there's no active calls that we're responding to, we just conduct proactive patrols. So that will involve us engaging with residents, with businesses in the town, our partners, such as my local bobby, shopping centre security teams, Havering enforcement and their officers, and we just try and be visible and engage with people, really.
I guess that's what it is it providing that reassurance and that presence in the town centre?
I guess our main aim is to reassure the public and make people, when they come to Romford, whether they're working here, whether they're shopping, visiting friends, whatever they're here for, is to make sure that they feel safe. To do all we can to reduce the fear of crime and also to take positive action when offences are identified. In Romford we do a lot of work on stop and search. That's one of the main tools we use on the town centre teams to reduce offending. We have an excellent detection rate, so when we're searching people, around 39% of the time we find what we're looking for. We find something illegal, which might not sound a lot, but across the Metropolitan Police that is actually far higher than the average. There are incidents that are spontaneous that happen. Unfortunately we do see disorder, we do see violent offences. They are rare, they are infrequent, but they do happen. My stance on crime and antisocial behaviour is that there is a zero tolerance from my team, so I expect my officers to deal with every offence as far as they possibly can, regardless of how serious or not serious it may seem.
So you providing that reassurance for the public, but also what's your message for those that are not complying by the law, they're doing those antisocial behaviour, they're committing those crimes? What is your...
My message is we'll see you soon.
You're listening to the Living in Havering podcast. So we've just heard about the work local police do in Havering, but in addition to on the beat policing, there's another important job taking place behind the scenes to help keep Havering residents safe. We're now joined by Chris McAvoy, the man who oversees Havering Council's CCTV network. Hello, Chris.
Hi, Ben.
Hello, thanks for joining us here. Could you start by telling us a bit about your role and what the CCTV network in Havering actually involves?
Yeah, sure. So I'm head of community safety at Havering. So part of my role is to oversee the community safety teams, including our enforcement team who are out on the street, the emergency planning teams and the CCTV team. So the CCTV team work 24/7, 365 days a year. and they monitor our street cameras live, and they obviously link in with the police, and we have a police radio in the control room, and we act as the eyes and ears of the police in areas that there maybe not be at the time.
Okay, for people who may not realise, I mean, it is a really extensive network right across the borough. So can you tell us a bit about that in terms of how many cameras, where does it cover, what does it do?
Absolutely. So there's just under 400 cameras across Havering that we monitor at the moment, and that is an expanding network. So about a quarter of those cameras that we've got are in our public realm areas, our high streets and our town centres, and the remaining 3/4 are in our housing estate. And as the new housing estates are being built, as we move on into phase 2, is to make sure we connect into those estates, and we're able to bring those live images back to the control room as well.
Right, so you're not only replacing the old cameras or upgrading the system, but you're also actually expanding it as we develop new buildings and homes and so on.
Yes, so the current project is literally a like-for-like replacement.
Okay, so what does a typical day look like for your team then? I mean, you said 24/7, 365 days. So how does that look on a day-to-day basis?
It's extremely busy. They're always on the lookout, very proactive, watching suspicious behaviour. Obviously, we've got the police radio going all the time, so they will zone into that. The police call up the control room regularly, several times per hour, and ask them to look out for things such as stolen vehicles, missing people that have been reported committing crime in the area. So they'll be out looking, and it's really actually quite fun to watch when you see that seamless interaction between the police and the operators. When the police put a call out, we respond straight away. We're obviously out looking, and obviously with the new cameras now, the detail of the camera is much better, and they can zoom in much further, and so our reach and our observations are obviously very helpful to police.
Sure. So the technology has definitely evolved, hasn't it, as you mentioned there? But also it sounds like it is very much a live operation rather than just providing evidence for police investigations, after the fact.
Absolutely. So there's a bit of both. There's the proactive work, and the operators will spot things and they will put that up to the police proactively as well. So it goes two ways. It's not just us sitting there passively waiting for the police to contact us. We can also share 2 of our screens with the Met Control Room. So if we think something they need to be aware of, we will look at the scenario, the situation. We will look into that, and then we'll share that screen with the police. And there's also the third element, which is the environmental side of things. So we've also got the joint enforcement tasking meeting, where all of our enforcement teams, internal departments, police, and sometimes other agencies will join that as a bi-weekly meeting, and we discuss current scenarios, current arising hotspots, and we will task the appropriate and relevant enforcement team to deal with that situation and come back in 2 weeks' time and feedback what they've done. As part of that joint enforcement tasking meeting, we've got about 8 or 10 redeployable cameras, and we do move those around the borough. So half of those cameras generally are looking at environmental hotspots, such as fly tipping hotspots. And we know that fly tipping is like one of the number 1 or number 2 things that residents complain about and report to the council. Yep. So we're very mindful that this is something that people want us to be doing. So we've got a number of those redeployable cameras in those hotspots, and the operators can view them live. Or if we know it's a hotspot and it's a recurring area, we can focus the cameras there and then review them later on.
Okay, so quite a range of work then that you cover with the cameras. Could you give us a few examples, a taste really, of any recent events or incidents that you've been involved in that have helped prevent a crime or catch suspects?
Yeah, absolutely. We recognised there was a huge fly tipping area in Rainham. So we put a redeployable camera there, and we've caught a number of people fly tipping there. But one of the ones of note that I want to mention is a vehicle that had come in from outside of the borough, emptied entire contents of the van there, probably at least a ton of rubbish, and then drove off. And a long story short, via the joint enforcement tasking meeting, we've managed to identify with intelligence where the vehicle was. And then together with the police and enforcement team, we went out to the location, seized the vehicle using the powers that we've got as council officers, and we've since destroyed that vehicle. So I think that's a really good example of, certainly for the environmental side of things, where the cameras are being effectively deployed. In terms of the other criminality, there's been some really good examples. One of them, going back to sort of last year, the police put out on the radio that there'd been a robbery involving 3 suspects, and they'd robbed another young person of their phone. The description that was circulated of the suspects by the police, the operators picked that up, and they found 3 suspects that they believed to be the people that the police were looking for. They followed them on camera. They saw them get onto a bus from Romford Town Centre and leave the town centre outside of our camera range, but they gave the running commentary of that. They then saw the bus come into another town centre where we had another one of our cameras, got the suspects back under observation, and again talked the police into where the bus was, where the suspects were. Police stopped the bus, got onto the bus, arrested the suspects, and they were actually the suspects for the robbery. So they got the property back, and that was a really excellent example of some joint working and how the cameras really work effectively.
Absolutely, that's brilliant.
Yeah, and I was really pleased to hear about that. And the operators get a real buzz out of getting involved in something serious like that and being able to help the police with such a serious offence, but also give the victim a bit of closure and maybe get their property back.
Now, moving on, so when people, as you said, CCTV is very much a hot topic, and it has been for years and continues to be. And now some people do worry about privacy when it comes to CCTV. So how do you ensure that the system is used responsibly and fairly? And, are those concerns justified?
So I think it's fair to say that we get a lot of requests for new CCTV. I would say 99% of the requests, maybe more than 99% actually. It's very, very rare we go the opposite way. Most people want more CCTV. A week doesn't go by when a resident or a councillor asks us if we can put more CCTV in their area, and that is feedback they get from their residents as well. If it's in a circumstance, if it's a councillor requesting it, we've had petitions from councillors with hundreds of signatures on it saying, please, can you put more cameras in our area? When we do annual crime surveys, it's always in the top 3 things that people ask for, more CCTV, and especially with the fly tipping element as well. People want us to put cameras up to catch people fly tipping. So that's definitely the feedback we get on an annual basis and a monthly basis, and actually sometimes a daily basis.
But for those people perhaps who do worry about privacy, what safeguards are in place? What can you say to reassure them here now to make sure that footage is handled securely?
So in answer to that, we do have a very rigorous and robust data protection policy. So we've got privacy notice that we abide by. We've got a data protection impact assessment, which we fill out and complete, and we renew every year. And that outlines why we are processing these images. Images are now people's personal data, so your face is your data the same way your name and address is. So we'd absolutely handle it the same way. The data protection impact assessment ensures that we share it only when needed, when necessary, i.e. with the police and law enforcement agencies, and we absolutely keep it locked down other than that. So it's not as if anybody can just walk into the control room, for example. There is a very strict protocol on who can enter the control room. Not even the chief executive of the council can just walk in there, not the leader of the council. You're only allowed in there if you have a valid reason to be in there. The footage is retained only for the short period of time that we need to keep hold of it for in the event of a retrospective review, and then beyond sort of 30 days, if there's no reason to keep it, we will delete that. So absolutely, I think it's right and fair to say that we do handle all that data securely, safely, and we process it legally in line with all of the legislation and the Biometric and Surveillance Camera Commissioner's guidance.
Yeah, so lots of legislation and protocols around making sure that it's being used in the right way. Okay,
yes.
Chris, we're almost out of time, but just before you go, now we've spoken a lot about the great things, the important aspects of CCTV, but I just thought we'd end on a bit of a lighter note. And I just wondered if you can recall any times where the CCTV cameras have perhaps picked up something a bit strange, or, the stranger things that have been caught on camera.
Yeah, interesting question. The mindset around people that carry out fly tipping is that they think they're not going to get caught, they think they're out of sight. And by putting cameras in those areas, you do catch other behaviours, as you can imagine. That might be drug taking, it might be antisocial behaviour. And we've also caught what appears to be extramarital affairs. Make of that what you will. Without going into too much detail, obviously, that's, I guess, something that you see that you don't necessarily expect to see.
Sounds like a potential kissing cam incident there.
Absolutely.
All right, Chris. Well, it's been really fascinating to speak to you today and to learn more about the CCTV network and what you do to support the police and to help keep residents safe. So thanks so much for joining us here on the Living in Havering podcast.
Thanks for having me, Ben.
The Living in Havering podcast is just one way you can keep up to date with what's happening around your borough. Sign up for the Living in Havering email newsletter, the council's weekly publication, bringing you all of the latest news, events and important updates from across Havering. It's completely free and takes less than a minute to subscribe. Visit havering.gov.uk/e-news. That's havering.gov.uk/e-news and sign up today.
You're listening to the Living in Havering podcast. Today, we're exploring something that's easy to overlook when we're caught up in the daily commute or the morning school run: the ground beneath our feet. Havering isn't just a borough, it's a living, breathing archive of thousands of lives, struggles and triumphs. But how do we actually keep that history? And more importantly, why does it matter that we do? Joining me today are two people who are fighting to ensure those memories closer to home don't fade away. Jane Keane from the Havering Museum, guarding the official record, and Bill Fisher from Eastside Community Heritage, capturing the intimate, untold voices of one of our communities in an upcoming podcast series. Welcome along to you both.
Hi, Ben.
Hi.
Thanks so much for joining us here on the Living in Havering podcast. So to get us started, I'll start with you, Jane. Can you tell us a little bit about the Havering Museum?
Had to fit it all in. So in actual fact, we have been going in on this site since 2010. Last year was a big 15-year anniversary for us. We are based in the former brewery buildings. So you can find us on the High Street in Romford. At the moment, entirely volunteer driven, and we exist solely really because other people have been supremely generous, supporting us with their time, their money, their donations, their sponsorship.
Thanks for sharing. And Bill, you're leading an exciting project as well with the residents of Harold Hill. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so it's in the Bonds for History project with support from Pride and Place funding. What we've aimed to do is really capture the kind of oral history and the memories of residents from Harold Hill kind of in the past, and then connect that to younger people and more current residents of Harold Hill. So it's been an amazing project going to different community groups, speaking to lots of different people, and then creating a few podcast exhibitions from that. And yeah, been fantastic.
All sounds great, both sides of things. So going on then, we often think of history as something found in dusty textbooks. So how do your respective projects challenge that idea and essentially bring living history of Havering to life? Bill, I'll start with you this time.
Sure. So I think that's really the power of oral history, because it is all about actually making it as accessible as possible and getting the history from people who maybe haven't previously been recorded in, the dusty textbooks and whatever. Going through and finding people and finding what really matters, what the really important aspects of what people think is their own histories and the important histories of that in the area.
I'm sure some fascinating stories that you've heard, and we'll come on to maybe a few of them a bit later. But Jane, same question for you. How does Havering Museum bring the living history of Havering to life?
Well, we are very fortunate. In addition to our displays in the gallery, which are mainly static displays, what we actually house are a collection of objects that are relevant to Havering's history. And our lovely volunteers, their role is to bring them to life, to talk about the origins of those objects, how they're made, what they cost, who used them, how they were discarded, how they've been discovered. So that's one way of bringing dusty. I'm going to put that in quotes. You can't see me, but I'm doing air quotes. They're not, So objects are actually really key to a museum. It's what distinguishes a museum perhaps from other cultural activities. But alongside that, we do so many activities. We have a fabulous reminiscence group. So we have people come, they share time together on a Friday afternoon. They share their reminiscences. It's structured so that we can kind of get people talking about the things that were really important to them. And that's very important in a day where people talk about loneliness. We bring people together and they can talk about things that were important to them in their past, and in doing that they bring them to life. We have a family history group as well, and obviously what they're doing is discovering their sort of past ancestors, and there's quite a lot of help on site so that people can fill in the gaps in their family tree. So that's just an example of some of the things we do to bring things to life.
Bill, oral history is deeply intimate. So when you sit down with a resident to record their personal stories, what are you looking to capture that you simply can't find, say, in a local archive or newspaper clipping?
So I think that really gets to the heart of why oral history is important, because it's all about what is valuable and it's the things that don't get recorded. That can be a huge breadth of things. It's also about going to the people who also maybe haven't been recorded or haven't had their stories included within kind of wider histories of an area. So when we're kind of getting there, and what we're really looking for is, again, the things that are important to people, the things that maybe they think might not be represented in the past, but the things that they think are really valuable and the things that really kind of make up a place. So this might be, for example, in Harold Hill, a huge amount of people have sort of mentioned about the real importance of senses of community. People's memories of maybe local bands are fantastic. Ghost stories are a particular favourite of mine, because I think they really show you a lot about kind of things about the area that might not have been written down previously.
No story too small, and actually it's normally those smaller stories, or the things that are not written down, are actually the most interesting stories. Moving on then, there's a saying that you don't know where you're going until you know where you've been. So how does learning about local history history change the way a resident of Havering says views the streets, the buildings or parks that they live in and they pass every day? Jane, I'll throw that one over to you.
What it really does is it fills in the gaps. We learn about national history, we learn about major national events, but what local history does is it puts a lot more colour on those events. And like as an academic, that's what I'm going to say, it really does fill in those beautiful gaps and really challenges our notions of what national history is. And actually then you can start to see that it's local that matters.
I'm going to hark back to my days as a radio journalist, where I was taught when I was studying my masters. One thing that stuck with me was the saying that when hunting for a good story, the closer it is, the smaller it needs to be to interest or affect me. So with that in mind, Bill, how does your project give a voice to people who might feel their stories have been left out of the official history books?
Well, I think it's so important because it's about accessibility. It's allowing people who feel like they might have been left out of history books. It's allowing them to actually be engaged and actually truly be involved in that through both being able to be recorded and being added to kind of wider histories in a much more accessible way. But also we're giving people skills, and we've actually been helping and training, for example, younger people to go out and do their own horror history and create their own new narratives and their own new histories. For example, there's a really big history of like LGBTQ plus people who may not have been included in kind of wider histories of Havering or Romford, but I've talked to at least several people who remember those who were actually very out and proud in like the 80s and 70s, which is really amazing, was really surprising to me, but whose names would never have been written down previously, but now have been because we've been able to kind of talk to people, and people then have gone and made their own histories and recorded that themselves.
That's great. Brilliant. So Jane, I'm going to come to you now and I'm probably going to ruffle a few feathers here, but museums can sometimes feel intimidating to a lot of people. They can. I mean, a lot of people see them as dark rooms with dusty objects which have no relevance to their lives or their world. So how do you ensure as a museum that you remain accessible and relevant to someone who isn't a history expert or history buff?
Well, one of the ways that we've done that recently is we took part in a Good Life Day, and we were really keen to show that museums are places where activities happen and history can be made as well as captured and recorded. So we invited in two local organisations, St Francis Hospice Choir and Romford Cllr Band, and we put on activities as well for the children, decorating biscuits and making jewellery, and we had a really fabulous, fun-filled, action-packed day, which really challenges the notion of something being dusty, dark, quiet, but to challenge this notion that that's what the only thing that a museum is. We have these wonderful events. That's what the museum needs to aim for on a more regular basis. We can do much more than just be some dusty old place where old things are kept.
so much more than just merely an archive of Havering's history by the sounds of it. Mm-hmm. All right, well, we're almost out of time, but I just would like to wrap up and ask you both the same question. If you could pick one hidden story or piece of Havering history that you wish every single resident knew, what would it be and why?
We've had a hospital and a workhouse. We had a workhouse in Romford, Old Church. It became a hospital. We have a new hospital. And in that hospital are many, many people from all around the world that have come here to work, to deliver babies, to bring to life future generation. And I think one of the hidden stories that really needs to be told in Havering is the tale of midwifery. I would absolutely love to see that brought to life with using midwives, oral history, interviews with mothers, to talk about, these rites of passage that's so important in our lives. I think that's something that we hopefully will end up doing. So thank you for asking that question.
So I think one that really amazed me actually was about the Haverettes All Girls Marching Band, in part because the sort of history of marching bands throughout kind of a lot of East London, particularly like Barking and Dagenham and Havering, I think is something really amazing and important, and is really a community kind of group and thing that's sort of slightly dying out, which is a little sad. But the Haverettes All Girl Marching Band was this amazing group based for some time in Harold Hill that did performances literally all over the world. I got told by someone we interviewed that they even went to the Vatican, which was amazing to me. But there's this amazing history about how these starting off very small groups can have a really, really global influence actually in some ways and get out there and be this amazing thing.
Excellent.
So
Well, thank you so much for both your time. Now, you've given us your time, so it's only fair we give you a plug. So for anyone listening who feels inspired by this to get involved and help preserve Havering's history and legacy, what's the best way for them to do that? So, Bill, how do they go about sharing their story with you?
So if they either send it in, access via our website or any social media pages to Eastside Community Heritage, have a word and we can hopefully arrange to meet them and hopefully record their story.
Thank you. And Jane, if people want to get involved with the museum?
Yeah, one of the things they could do is come along to our 250 years of Freemasonry exhibition, which runs until the 24th of July. They can check that out on our website. So it's www.haveringmuseum.org.uk. There's lots of information on there about freelance work opportunities, volunteer opportunities, and all the activities that go on in our museum. Or they could come and see us at 19 to 21 High Street, Romford. Thanks ever so much, Ben, and lovely to meet you again, Bill.
Lovely to meet you again too.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for your time. So if you want to get involved and be part of Havering's history, get stuck in.
Yay!
Yeah. You're listening to the Living in Havering podcast. Thank you.
You're listening to the Living in Havering podcast.
You're listening to the Living in Havering podcast. It's now time for our monthly Leaders Question Time. Now, it's our first one since the local elections back in May, when we saw a new administration voted in and a new council leader appointed. With that said, I'm pleased to be able to welcome to the podcast the new leader of Havering Council, Cllr Keith Prince. Hello, Keith.
Hi, how are you?
Hello, very well, thank you. Lovely to have you here. And firstly, thanks for agreeing to a monthly Leaders Question Time here on the Living in Havering podcast.
No, I think it's something that's really important, actually, and I'm looking very much forward to next month when hopefully we get some questions directly from the public.
Absolutely. And with that said, this is usually the part of the podcast where we do put questions to you from residents and listeners. But as this is your first question time, we thought we'd take the opportunity to get to know you a bit better as both leader, but as the man behind the politician as well. So if you're all right with that, shall we get started?
Sure, absolutely.
So diving straight in then, firstly, how are you feeling after the election, and can you tell us what's been happening since polling day?
Sure, it's fantastic actually to be leader of the borough in which you were born and raised and educated is just something so very, very special. And what's been going on? Well, we've been having back-to-back meetings with officers. I mean, Havering Council is an enormous organisation. We employ over 6,000 people, and we've been doing solid getting to know you meetings with each department, the whole cabinet meeting with each department, solid meetings all day long, because we really need to get inside what's happening in Havering before we can start to look very closely at those areas where we think we need to do more work.
Okay, so really getting under the bonnet of things over the last few weeks. Now, Keith, we've heard a lot about your 100-day plan, and I know that you're due to announce this in the next few weeks, but could you give us a little preview here on the podcast of what the key priorities for your administration are?
Yeah, I mean, clearly policing and crime is a priority, and we'll be looking at ways in which we can work with the Met. We've had some bad news on that. In fact, I will be raising this matter tomorrow with the Mayor of London at the Mayor's Question Time, because we currently pay for half a dozen police officers, and we pay shy of £400,000 for those, but the Commissioner wants to whack the price up. Well, I don't understand that. He's whinging on about losing 500 police officers. Well, if it's going to make them unaffordable for all the boroughs that buy into the scheme, then he's going to have even fewer. So certainly going to have some very robust conversations with the Mayor about that.
Absolutely. And on that point, you're obviously not just leader of Havering Council, but you've also been for quite a while now the London Assembly member for the area. So how does that role, do you think, will fit in with your ability to be able to lobby for better deals for Havering with policing and with everything else?
Well, I think I've just given the perfect example. Other leaders would have to ask for a meeting with the mayor, and he may or may not grant the meeting with the mayor. Within a few days of finding out what the situation was, I'm able to table a question and I can speak directly to the mayor in public. So he's got nowhere to hide. He can't hide from me. May well be hiding from almost every other leader, except for the leader of Richmond, who's also on the Assembly. So he may be able to hide from some, but he can't hide from me. And I think that's enormous. Being on the Assembly gives me unique access and also contacts that other leaders wouldn't have the advantage of.
Brilliant. And moving on then, so there's been a lot of national coverage regarding Havering's decision not to fly the Pride flag for Pride Month. And in line with Reform UK's national policy, fly any other flag except for the Union flag, Cross of St George, the Havering Borough flag and the Armed Forces flag. So with that in mind, how can you reassure residents that you will deliver for them no matter what community or background they come from?
Well, I think that policy proves the point. We are completely inclusive. We represent all people. We don't specialise. We don't single out any particular organisation for special favour or for punishment. It is a case that we represent all the people of the borough, and we will continue to do so.
Okay, there you go. All right then, another major concern for residents leading up to the election was the gift that keeps on giving, if you like, that of Gallows Corner. So as both council leader and London Assembly member, how are you going to apply pressure to TfL and Essex and Suffolk Water to get the job done?
If it's the gift that keeps on giving, I'm not really looking forward to Christmas very much.
That's very true. Yes.
No, I mean, again, this is where, being the Assembly member, I have a great advantage over other leaders. You will have seen, if you were suffering from insomnia and you watched the last meeting of Mayor's Question Time, which is the ultimate cure for insomnia, I hasten to add, I actually asked the Mayor of London about Gallows Corner, and he promised me that I would get weekly updates on a Friday going forward, because he accepts that we've been kept in the dark. And to be fair, on Friday last week, I had an update and I did share that, and that had been shared through our channels. So I'm looking forward to my next update tomorrow. And again, when I receive that, then I will again share that with everybody on the different channels that we have. But, I can assure you that I am constantly, and have been constantly, on the phone, emailing, questioning the mayor. I mean, I really can't believe the things that have been going wrong. All these delays now are completely and utterly in the hands of Essex and Suffolk Water. I'd love to be able to blame TfL. I'd love to be able to blame the Mayor of London, but it is very much the case. It is Essex and Suffolk Water, the problems that they're having. I cannot understand how, in today's society, they lay a pipe, they test it, it works, and then as soon as they put soil on top of it, it stops working and they have leaks and malfunctions. If I was them, I'd be really upset with the contract.
All right, moving on then, Keith, to budgets. Now, you've come in as a new administration, but the financial situation for the council hasn't changed. So how are you planning to tackle that in the years to come?
Well, I mean, it is a massive challenge, and these intense meetings that we've been having over the last week or so really identify that the current financial situation is horrendous. And to be fair to the previous administrations, this is very much the making of Eric Pickles when he restructured the way that local government was financed. I think that there are decisions that should and could have been made that haven't been made. We are going to have to make some very, very tough decisions. We are going to have to make tough decisions around savings. We're going to have to make more savings, but the gap is enormous. So we're also going to have to find ways of generating more income. And I think that the fundamental problem that has been the case over many previous administrations in this borough is they've tried to plug what is a revenue problem. So a revenue problem is like the weekly shopping, as opposed to a capital problem, which is like buying a car. So buying a car is a one-off, doing your shopping, you have to do it every week. And what they've been doing is they've been selling off the family silver in order to plug these revenue gaps. But that doesn't solve the problem. What we need to do is we need to find ways of generating more income for the borough. So we'll be looking very closely at areas and ways in which we can generate more income. And in principle, instead of selling off all our land so somebody else makes a profit and someone else generates income, we want to, where we can, look at ways in which we can develop our own parcels of land and then generate an income from that.
Sure. And I mean, I guess that income has to be the answer, doesn't it? Because that revenue cost, if you like, the weekly shopping, when we're talking about adult social care, children's social care, and housing, homelessness, housing demand, it's just going up. And you
go away.
Can't see it going away, can we?
The only way we think that will go away is if we get a sensible government, because we're not an inefficient borough. We're not a badly run borough. We've had peer reviews and they've all shown that we're doing a good job in that respect. But it's the fundamental funding. We get less funding per head than virtually any other borough. So if we were able to even get up to the levels of some of our neighbouring boroughs, we will be in a much better financial position.
Okay. All right, Keith. Well, now we're going to move on to something a bit lighter. So you've been around the world of Havering politics for some time now, but this is the first time we're speaking to you here on the podcast. So it would be great to give listeners an insight into what makes you tick. So we have a few quick fire questions for you, if you don't mind.
Sure, of course.
Okay, here we go then. So favourite band or singer?
Oh, it's Elton John all day long.
Favourite song?
Well, I have to say Yellow Brick Road, because that's the record that I first heard that introduced me to Elton John. But if it's live, it's got to be Benny and the Jets. And if it's off the wall, it's got to be Ego.
A true fan there, you can tell. So I guess we're going to be calling you the Rocket Man from now on.
Well, if I get called that, I'd be quite happy, because I've been called a lot worse.
All right. Next one. Are you a football man? And if so, what's your team?
Well, allegedly, I'm a football man, and I have to say that my team is West Ham United.
There you go. I think you've won over quite a few listeners with that answer there, Keith. Early bird or night owl?
Both.
So yeah, you don't sleep?
People will complain they get emails from me at 3:00 in the morning. Yeah, I not so much today, but certainly historically, I always used to say that I never go to bed the same day that I wake up.
Well, as an officer, I look forward to that.
Yeah, I don't actually expect anyone to respond. Occasionally, you do get a response, which is quite funny, but yeah, no, I don't expect anyone to respond. But it's a good time. The problem I get during the day is if I'm working on an email or even a WhatsApp, someone will call me and then you get distracted. Whereas at 3:00 in the morning, I don't get too many phone calls.
Good to know. All right, then. So if you could have dinner with any historical figure, living or dead, who would it be?
Oh, that's the easiest question in the world. Jesus Christ.
Okay. And what would the conversation go like?
Well, I mean, you could ask him absolutely anything, couldn't you? Because you've got a direct line into God. I mean, I'm a born again Christian anyway, so it'll be an immense privilege to be having dinner with the Lord. Hopefully not the Last Supper again, but I think you could just ask him absolutely anything and he would have the answer. But yeah, I would definitely, well, one thing it would answer anyway is there a God, and is there, was Jesus the Messiah? Certainly that would answer those very basic questions. Over and above that, yeah, you could ask him a whole load of theological questions, but even about how he sees the future, why things happen. There's lots of good that happens in the world, but there's lots of evil in the world, and you do wonder sometimes why that's allowed to happen. But I guess that's because God gave us freedom of choice.
That's a question you'd have to ask. You'd have to ask Jesus. It would be a very interesting supper, but as you said, hopefully not the last. And talking of supper, last one for you. Your go-to takeaway choice.
No problem at all. Domino's.
Other pizza companies are available.
Well,
And what's your topping of choice then?
The Pizza Hut closed down with the one opposite the Queen's Hospital. That one closed down, and for sit down, I would have gone to Pizza Hut or Pizza Express. The Pizza Express, I used to love the Veneziana, but Domino's nowadays they do a veggie volcano. I'm a vegetarian, so I do have
okay.
So yeah, it'd be the veggie volcano or just the veggie if I'm not. But I actually like pineapple, so I often get extra pineapple put on top of my pizza.
You're a pineapple pizza man. You see, a lot of people are not. I am. I love a ham and pineapple. It's probably one of my favourite toppings.
Yeah,
but a lot of people kind of turn their nose up at that.
Yeah, I can't do the ham, obviously.
No, obviously not. No. But my go-to takeaway choice has to be Chinese, I'm afraid.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah.
With the Chinese, the best way to eat a Chinese is with 2 or 3 friends, so you can get a whole selection of food that you can. But because I'm a vegetarian, most people don't want to eat the food that I want to eat. So,
You'll be eating alone.
Yeah, well, be a sad bloke. So for me, the Chinese, I do like Chinese, but I can't get the variety that I would really like unless I plan a 5-day menu,
All right then. If anyone fancy sharing you're a vegetarian and fancy sharing a Chinese with the new leader of the council, then do get in touch. All right, Keith, it's been really good speaking to you and getting to know you. Thanks very much for joining us again on the Living in Havering podcast. Have a good month, and it's going to be a busy one, and hopefully we'll see you again in July.
Yeah, that'll be great. And as I say, I really would welcome listeners to put their questions in, because I'm here to represent all the people, and people come up with some great ideas, and that's really important.
Absolutely. And on that note, if you have a question for the new leader of the council, you can email living@havering.gov.uk, and we could be putting your question to Keith in next month's Leaders Question Time.
You're listening to the Living in Havering podcast.
Well, that's it for this episode. We'll be back next month for another look into life in Havering and the people that make it a great place to live, work and visit. So if you have a story you think others want to hear, you can get in touch by emailing living@havering.gov.uk. Remember to like and subscribe and follow us on social media too. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Nextdoor and WhatsApp. Also, make sure to sign up to our free weekly Living in Havering email newsletter, bringing you the latest news and events from Havering and those all-important council service changes you don't want to miss. You can subscribe on our website at havering.gov.uk/newsletters. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next month. The Living in Havering podcast was presented by Ben Vaughan, the producer was Will Taylor, and the executive producer was Marcus Chrysostomou.